How far down should I slide it?
Just go all the way down.
All the way? Is it covering up my face now?
No, it's a short bottle.
Eventually I might get covered up though.
Yeah.
That's fine.
What's up, everybody? I'm Dan.
And I'm Eddie.
We're the Deathless Dogs, and today we are going to hit you with another list video. This list is going to be some great whiskeys that fall between the $30 and $40 range. Before we jump in, if this is your first time watching us, hit the subscribe button or like our page if you're watching on Facebook. We do this every week, every Wednesday. We'll hit you with a video. The reason we're doing this video right now is because it's like right before Christmas.
It's right before Christmas, and this is like 10 bottles that I think would be right in your gift-giving sweet spot.
You might spend a little more on somebody that's like really close to you, but
Right.
like your average friends or something. But even just buying these bottles for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think $30 to $40 is where you're going to find a lot of good value bottles, but also just kind of gives you a wide array of different selections to choose from.
I was actually talking to my Uncle Dave on the phone last night. He was telling me that he needs to buy some bottles that are kind of within this price range because right now he's just gotten into like the whiskey collecting thing and he's getting some more high priced bottles. But he's like, I want something a little cheaper that I can drink.
Right.
You
Something
know,
that
so
you
I don't
know-
rip through all my big stuff right
Absolutely.
away. So Dave, pay attention. And also take into account we live in Wisconsin and liquor can be cheaper here than it is in other places.
Because we like to drink.
Yeah, we drink a lot of it. I think we get a bulk discount. Price is going to, vary by your region, wherever you are. These bottles fall within that range where we live. First up, we have the Henry Mckenna, bottled in bond, 10-year. This one falls just outside the range at $40.99. We're going to count it anyway, because that does not say 41, it says $40.99.
And it should be noted, Uncle Dave, that this bottle is pretty abundantly available in Rochester, Minnesota.
Around here and around you, it might be harder to find because this one hit Whiskey of the Year like 2 years in a row, I think.
Oh, I thought it was just the 1 year, and I thought it was the year after Blanton's, but
I think it was like Bourbon of the Year 1 year, and then full on just Whiskey of the Year.
Well, either way, it's been studded with awards.
But yeah, these first bottles might fall into a little bit of a harder to find category. You might not see them on shelves all the time, but if you do see them, we recommend grabbing one. This is a great bottle at a great fair price point. It did see a jump in the price with the awards it received, and the hype train started rolling on it. But it's still, I think, at $40.99. I would even go up to like $45 for this. I think this is it's a great bourbon.
The other thing I want to say about that is when it comes down to like allocated whiskeys, this one still isn't being like a one per customer type of bottle.
Next bottle, Eagle Rare. You've heard us talk about this one before. This was your daily drinker in our 5 whiskeys you should have video, which if you haven't watched yet, check it out. It's on our channel. Eagle Rare, most people know what it is. It's a great bottle. Comes in the mid 30s usually.
Sometimes low 30s.
Yeah, it's a crazy good price on something
Absolutely.
this good. It's 10 years. It's super approachable. I recommend this to anyone who hasn't had it. Pick up a bottle if you ever see it.
A lot of people have kind of gotten wise to Eagle Rare, not only for its drinkability just out of the bottle, but also a lot of people seem to suggest that it's a very good mixer whiskey for Manhattans, Old Fashions, so on and so forth.
It has that cherry thing.
Yeah.
That plays in well with those two drinks specifically. Low to mid 30s usually. I would go up to 40 for an Eagle Rare if I hadn't seen one in a while. I walked into a store recently and they had a shelf full of Eagle Rare, and I was kind of excited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy one actually for my Uncle Dave, who we mentioned earlier, because I recommended it to him and he couldn't find it. And then I saw why the shelf was full. They had it at like $55.
That's a little much.
I would not recommend paying that for it. Not that it's not good, but that's kind of getting into that secondary market pricing.
Yeah, I think when you find a bottle of this for $50 or more, you just have to realize that you will find it again at its proper price point. You just might have to be a little bit patient.
There's a reason that shelf is full. For a bourbon this popular to have a shelf full at that price point, that tells you really all you need to know.
I've also kind of earmarked Eagle Rare to be my like dark horse next Blanton style bourbon, because a lot of people know it, a lot of people like it. It's not as flashy as Blanton's, but I could see like 10 years down the road this particular bourbon kind of being even more difficult to find, even more coveted, and even more valued. This is kind of like what you were talking about earlier, as this bottle I think would have the potential to eventually make that jump from 35 to 50, 60 when you find it.
I could agree with that. I could see it because it's a Buffalo Trace product, and that shit just like, it just comes with the territory of Buffalo Trace. I feel like eventually it's all going to jump up. I mean, they could even just do it themselves where they just allocate it even more than they currently are. Anyway, right now, you see it on the shelf. If there's a 3 at the front of the price, pick it up. Next, we'll hit Old Ezra 7. That's a Lux Row product, and it's somewhat allocated. It hits like once or twice a year, I think. There is like the regular like Ezra Brooks that you'll find on shelves, but the 7 is like their allocated kind of version.
What y'all know about 7?
The price on it, it was, I believe when I got it, was like upper 30s. That was in Iowa. It's going to be at the high side of this scale.
You said you went to Iowa. I honestly haven't seen this bottle in Woodman's or Festival here in La Crosse. I don't even know if I've seen it in Rochester. So, I mean, you said it hits once or twice a year, but I haven't seen it yet. So, if you have, you probably are going to want to pick this one up.
We haven't drank a ton of it so far, and that's not for lack of quality or taste. It's just that there's all this back here, and we're kind of working through all of it.
I think that this bottle, people who like Jack Daniels are probably really going to like Old Ezra 7. I believe it's charcoal mellowed. I could be mistaken, but it does have a bit of that smokiness that some people like, and it kind of drinks more like a Tennessee style whiskey.
It is charcoal mellowed, aged 7 years, and it's 117 proof, so it's barrel strength. I like it quite a bit, and if I see another bottle of it the next time it swings through, I'll probably pick one up.
I think I would too, actually.
We'll hit our final pick of the kind of harder to find ones, and this would be harder to find this specific variant of 1792, the Sweet Wheat, but this more goes to just say the 1792 brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty readily available, and I've never had one that I didn't like. This
is another Buffalo Trace product, technically, right?
Yeah, I think it's under like the Sazerac umbrella, so it's, you know, it's under the same parent company.
Yeah. The hype train definitely jumped off on Bulletproof. That, for a while, was kind of hard to find, but now it's a lot more readily available. Whereas this particular variant, the Sweet Wheat, I had never seen it before. I was just walking through Woodman's, and I happened to peek my head around the corner to see if there was anything up on their little shelf where you can find a lot of the rare stuff.
Even sitting on the allocation shelf, you paid $32.99 for this. $17.92 is a great value. If I pull out this other one I have sitting here, this is a store pick from Stark's, actually, that came in at $34.99 for a bottled in bond. I mean, they all kind of sit in the price range we're talking about. I think Bulletproof jumps above 40.
It might,
but still not high. I think maybe like 45 or so.
Bulletproof has a black label. We probably could show you one.
There's
actually.
one back there. As you can see, we've got plenty of 1792 here, and the bottled in bond store pick. I bought another bottle of this, and this is actually my daily drinker at home right now. I kind of think 1792 as well is a good one for beginners. I think this is kind of the bourbon. 1792, I think, is the bourbon that kind of got my mom into drinking bourbon, actually, because it's got that like super brown, sugary, caramely kind of thing going on.
Did she start with the red label small batch, I believe, or did
No,
she?
she had Bulletproof.
Oh,
she just bought it. She was actually using it to make something, I think, like some kind of baking recipe, and she just bought it. Because
Making it with full proof, huh?
Because she thought the bottle looked cool, and then she tried it and really liked it. And I think that's actually what kind of got her started. Since we did your daily drinker from the 5 whiskeys you need video, we can throw mine up next. That's Wild Turkey Rare Breed. I personally think this is one of the best values in bourbon, period. It's just a great barrel-proof bourbon, ton of flavor, and it comes in around here at $36.
Just the Wild Turkey brand in general, I think, does a lot for their customers in terms of being price friendly, but also high quality.
Rare Breed would be a great bottle for somebody if you know that they drink whiskey already, if they're a bourbon drinker. This might be one that they've kind of slept on. Somebody who is kind of getting into bourbon might overlook it, and you could really turn them on to a great bottle.
You've picked up how many bottles now?
This is like my 3rd or 4th.
That's all you gotta say.
Yeah, and I'll buy more. I mean, when this one starts getting low, I'll buy another. It's on every shelf. Okay. We're going to run out of room here. So next, this one, we're putting it in the readily available section because in our area, it's pretty readily available in the Midwest because it's out of Illinois. But it's Opiden. And I'm specifically going to say this is a good one for somebody who likes Scotch or a smokier kind of flavor. This is definitely one to try. It's Alpine Smoke and Sea. And what that is bourbon that's been aged in Islay Scotch barrels. So it's got your bourbon notes, and then it picks up some of that smoke and a little bit of that salt. It almost comes through with like this dark chocolate dark fruit sweetness with the salt on. It's so good.
I remember trying it. I think I've only had it about once or twice. When I had it, I had a hard time finding the bourbon because my palate couldn't quite get past the Scotch.
Honestly, the first time when I bought this, I just bought it on a whim because it was about this time last year, and it gets cold and I want to drink something smoky, feels warm, you know. And I saw this and I was like, that looks really interesting. I want to try that. And I brought it here and I opened it, and the first taste I was like, man, I don't know. Like it wasn't like computing in my head. I had the first drink and I was like, I mean, this is okay. I still didn't really feel bad. I didn't spend that much money on it. The next day we practiced here again, and I poured another glass of it, and I loved it. Like, it just, all of a sudden, it all kind of fell into place, and I could feel what was going on there, and I was like, wow. Like, all of a sudden, I'm getting so much chocolate out of it. And that's kind of a through line in the Opiden line that I've noticed, is like a chocolatey kind of profile. So if you like that, you're going to like it. If you like smokiness, you're going to like it. It's an interesting whiskey. It's not boring. I can't guarantee you'll love it, but I do, and that's why I'd recommend people try it.
If you'll recall, I set Dan up with a blind date on Opiden Smoke and Sea's sweet sister, Canaan Rye.
Yeah.
And he loved that one too. So Dan is an Opiden fan. I say it's because it's got his name in the label. I am kind of anxious to fresh bottle pop this one at some point.
I don't necessarily think this is going to be like a beginner bottle. I think it's going to have to be somebody who is pretty familiar with like bourbon and, you know, even some Scotch, and then could pick out those notes and find it and appreciate it for what it is. I think if you were a total novice, if this was the first one you drank, you'd be like, oh shit. Like,
yeah, I don't think you'd really like it.
But like once it lines up, like I ripped through that bottle fast.
You did go through that one pretty quick. Next bottle.
I might as well pull up our only rye we have on the list here. And this would be High West Double Rye. This was the first rye we reviewed in the 5 Ryes of July.
I remember it was pretty modest tasting.
It's not super pungent. And price point on this is going to fall. You can find it on sale in the low 20s sometimes. I've found it. I think this one I bought for like $23. But I think it averages out around that $30 mark. Maybe a little less, depending on where you are. Maybe a little more. Solid bottle of rye. It's High West. They do great stuff.
Absolutely.
This is a blend of 2 ryes, which is why it's called double rye. The labeling, the bottle, the cork, the everything. Somebody'd be happy to unwrap that.
Absolutely.
It's a cool looking bottle.
It's very distinctive. It's got that wood kind of sanded top.
Mm-hmm.
Very unique. And then, they really spin a yarn on the back. You can read all that if you want, but
Yeah, they're telling you the story of what it is. They're pretty upfront on what they're doing. I mean, we could also recommend American Prairie Bourbon. Should fall within this price range as well. Jesse and Kyra were just drinking that.
yeah, they wrote up a post about it and said that they'd be buying it again and that the bottle would be short-lived.
And they started the hashtag New Whiskey Weekends.
There you go.
Which I'm all about. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, if you find a High West within that, within the price range we're talking, or even more, you're not really going to go wrong with it. They make good stuff. Their products are quality, and I think the presentation is awesome. We'll go with another tall guy here. I don't know if it's going to fit.
Start clearing room.
So this is Smooth Ambler Old Scout. This is the American whiskey, and it's a store pick. But really, this is kind of just a placeholder for Smooth Ambler in general. I think it's a distillery that we've liked pretty much everything we've had from them. I think the only one we weren't big fans of was Big Level.
That was a wheated bourbon, and I think we just need to open up our palates a little bit more to wheated whiskey.
We love the Smooth Ambler Contradiction. Is a great bourbon.
That's the one with the elephant standing on the ball, correct?
Yeah,
and black and white label.
And like 2 years ago, I think I actually gifted that bottle to my mom for Christmas. She loved it. It has kind of a salted caramel brownie kind of flavor to it, and I was like, well, that's gonna be right up her alley. And,
absolutely.
And it was. We opened it up, and she took a shot, and she just went, oh, holy shit. like she enjoyed that shit. They're out of West Virginia, I believe.
Right on the back it says it's Appalachian whiskey.
They also just came out with an Old Scout Rye, which I really want to try.
Yeah, we need to have that for jewelry.
Yeah, I'm dry, so I'm actually going to pour a little bit of this one. The only demerit I can put on this one is the screw top. Maker's 101. I picked that up for $35. And I was surprised that it was only $35, given that it's kind of a higher end Makers, and I think regular Makers is about $30 or so.
Yeah, and it's always more expensive at the bars too. Like for some reason, a lot of bars around these parts think that Makers is like the end all be all and top tier whiskey.
Well, yeah, most bars you go to, the highest level of bourbon they're going to have is Makers and Knob Creek, and that's not to say that they're bad.
No,
because they aren't. They're both very good, and this 101 is great. For gift factor, this came in a box. So you get the box, and when they open the box, you got the wax dip, which, people like the old razzle-dazzle of that.
Right.
But then they're going to try to pull the cork out.
They're going to try to fresh bottle pop because you guys watch our videos, so you know all about it.
Yeah, and you're going to be sorely disappointed when that thing spins in your hand. That's the one knock on this bottle that I can give it. Other than that, I really like how it tastes. It's a good little kicked up proof, for a Maker's Mark.
It's essentially what? Just barrel strength regular Makers, or?
I don't think it's barrel strength, but it's 101,
So it's just a little hotter than regular Makers.
Yeah. It's our signature family recipe, bottled at a higher proof. So Makers, less water, basically.
There you go. If you guys ever find your way to Loretto, Kentucky, you won't be disappointed by their distillery either.
You'll just be disappointed when it's a screw cap. So there you have it. That's 10. I mean, kind of more than 10 because we're talking about brands in some of them. Yeah. But, 10 ideas, we'll say, for great whiskeys that fall between that $30 and $40 mark. If we missed anything, let us know. People may read your comments and get ideas from you too, though. Exactly. You never know. Exactly. What are your favorite whiskeys in that price point? Because I feel like that's where a lot of the shelf lives. Yeah. Is in that price point, and you can find some real good shit in there. If this is your first time watching, make sure to subscribe, like our page on Facebook if you're watching there, because we'll be here again next Wednesday with another video for you. From the Western Wisconsin Whiskey Emporium for ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Now we gotta put all these bottles back. It's gonna be a whole thing. It's gonna take like 10 minutes. Then we gotta load up the... It's gonna take you 1 minute per bottle to put them back?